Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That 80s Child, the Generation Y. And my name is Gabrielle. Welcome to episode 4, one that I would like to call The Cars That Got Us There. When I first went into figuring out my list of things that I wanted to do for this season, and I wanted to discuss cars. However, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do it. Originally, I was going to just cherry pick some cars from the 80s and the 90s that were popular at the time or the most sold, ones that were highly featured in commercials like they usually are. But then I'm thinking to myself, not all of us were privileged to be able to have those cars. Our parents being, working parents, they were having kids to take care of, bills to pay. They wouldn't have the most flashy vehicle unless, of course, again, like I said, privileged. And when we were in high school, I know I didn't have a sports car, convertible, expensive, brand new. What I decided was I was going to talk about the cars that my family had over the years. It might be a little bit different for you. Obviously, everybody had different vehicles. Everybody had different tastes. You come from a household that only likes American-made cars or ones that didn't care or whatever was available. So my dad, being in the family, had a bunch of brothers that were involved in car salesmen. My Uncle Jimmy had the Jim Cataldi Buick that was in Hamilton and also in Philadelphia. I don't know if he had any other ones that I'm aware of or that I can remember. My dad worked with him for a little while after he had retired from carpentry, and the one in Hamilton, especially after we moved. So my dad was of a mind that he didn't want to have a car for too long where it was going to start breaking down and it was become costly having to fix it. So I'm not entirely sure of the financing and all the things that went into that. Obviously, I was a kid and I wasn't going up to my dad at 6 years old. I was like, did you get the proper financing for that, Dad? Did you lease it? What's the annual percentage rate? I didn't know any of that. I know that he did actually get most of the vehicles from my uncle, as far as I know. And you think to yourself, oh, family, I'm sure they have a discount. It was a running joke that the family discount was actually an upcharge. So I'm not entirely sure how much of a discount we ever got, if any. We might have ended up paying more just because our last names were the same. But I digress. So we had a different vehicle every few years because my dad was, like I said, didn't want to have to deal with the vehicle breaking down. I wish I was able to do that now, but I can't. Can't afford that stuff. I dream of a day not having a car payment. I almost got there until it was ruined for me. When I lived in Southampton, outside of our house was a Studebaker. Don't know the year. I believe it was a white. I know that it was semi-rusted. Never worked as far as I can recall. I never rode in it. Vaguely remember it. I don't really remember it too much, but it was there. I think my dad got rid of it before we moved because I don't think he left it in the driveway for the next person, which is my brother who bought the house afterwards. It's a shame because I actually really, really like vintage cars. And I'm not talking about vintage as in mid-90s because I feel like everybody's saying the mid-90s are now vintage. I know, like, our parents probably said the same thing when we were like, oh, that's from 1970 what? Oh, my God, that's so old. It's the same difference now. Like, you're like, wait, the 90s were not vintage? Nah, but they are, I guess. But for cars, not so much. I think that the best-looking cars were during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I think that just the design was just amazing. And let's just say that they were better built because now it's like they're paper mache. Before you had a tank. You get into an accident with somebody nowadays with one of those cars, you wouldn't have a dent and the other car would be decimated. So, and besides that, it's just like I said, the design is just beautiful. You don't have like awesome lines now with the wings and stuff like that. And even when they try to include some vintage aspects to the car, it's just too futuristic. And I get it that we're trying to be in a new millennia and century and things of that sort, but let's just let's just have a beautiful car. Why can't we have that? And I understand that be the old cars being gas guzzlers, and nowadays gas is ridiculously expensive, and we're trying to go more earth friendly. So I get it. But why can't we have earth friendly cars that are beautiful? So besides the Studebaker that never worked, I never actually rode in. I know that we had it, and I actually still have the title for that. For that, so maybe I can find it junked somewhere, and I'll be like that light right there. That belongs to me. The car that I remembered coming from Southampton to Hamilton, as it was a powder blue Suburban. Again, I'm not. It was an '80s Suburban. I want to say it was an '88, maybe an '87. All I know is it was big, and that's how. Besides the moving truck, my mom had her cactus in there because she had a huge cactus that she was growing from like a little thing that somebody gave her, and a lot of other things that they shoved inside of that thing. And I remember riding in it, especially when we were going back and forth to the store and things like that sort. I love Suburbans. I know they're big, but we've you'll hear it. We had another one afterwards. I seem to always be in need of a bigger vehicle to either lug something around because I've had to move twice since we moved from Hamilton. Every time I'm like, I have a normal sedan that can fit diddly squat in it. Now, all right, so I had a Camry, and then I had my Ford Fusion. They have bigger like back seats, so I'm glad I didn't have my Mustang because I had nothing. But I just feel as though like I needed to have a truck or a van or an SUV. Now I did have people helping me that did have trucks or SUVs and things of that sort, but it's just I always seem to be without the vehicle that I need. I miss that. I miss the powder blue Suburban because it's like an old time powder like Suburban. They were bigger, chunkier. It was just I liked those cars. And I think it was a Buick Park Avenue. It I think it was a Park Avenue. My mom said it was a black Buick. We'll say it's a Park Avenue. I don't know. Could be something else. Continental? I don't think it was a Continental. But anyway, it was a Buick. And it was black. And my mom said it was haunted. Because every time, and this is when we first moved to Hamilton, the alarm would go off. It would be in the middle of the night. Where we lived, it was before they started to even give us lights for the road. It was pitch black outside, and my mom had to go out there to turn it off. And now when I think about it, I'm like, was somebody trying to steal our vehicle? Like, I don't know why. My mom said in order for it to actually get turned off, they had to disconnect the battery. So if somebody was trying to actually steal the vehicle, it wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. But I don't really remember that car or riding in it. I remember the Suburban more than anything. And again, I don't know the year because, like I said, I was younger. I just remember it from pictures and if I remember riding in it. So when we moved, I don't know when my dad got it, and I think it was a 1956 Cadillac. It was gray, and it was a beautiful big boat of a car, and it sat in our garage. It was the only car in our 2-car garage that ever was parked in the garage, because the rest of the stuff that was in the garage was the junk that they took from the other house. My dad was a pack rat. My mom saved a lot of things, and we just had a lot of stuff. Like I've said before, I'm sure. It was the only car that was ever parked in that garage. And I know that it did start. I don't know how frequently it started. I don't know what else needed to be done with it, but it never moved. And I'm really, really sorry that when I was younger, I didn't have more appreciation for it. Because I used to sit inside of it and play like that I was driving. And it was huge. It was such a beautiful, beautiful car. And if nothing else, I would have loved to have driven that as my, like, just a little bit. So I don't know what the deal was with it. I don't know the story behind it. But I know eventually my dad got rid of it. I think he gave it or sold it to his brother. I don't know. And I'm really wish he didn't. I don't know why. Maybe he was talked into it. Maybe he just wanted to get rid of it. Maybe it was just an eyesore and he just didn't want to deal with it. I don't really know. But I'm very, very sad that it never stayed long enough for me to ever actually like maybe start questioning it. And believe me, would talk about to my dad about stuff, and I would question him about things. And just that wasn't one of them, unfortunately. Maybe I could ask my mom. I'm not entirely sure if she would remember. My mom was one of those people, and it's not even about her having bad memory right now. But my mom was never one to really question a lot of things. She kind of just lived her life, and if my dad did something, he could go ahead and do whatever it was that he wanted to do. My mom never was just like, why are you doing that? She was like, very free spirited, whatever you need to do. I'm happy, you be happy, which is a great way of being. But the way that I am, I'm inquisitive about stuff, and I don't know, you could probably ask my son or his dad, like, was I a pain in the ass? Why are you doing that? What are you doing? Why is that going over there? What? How long? For what? It's this, and I would always, what is this, 20 questions? Yes, because I need to know all of these things, okay? And I'm not asking because I'm like, pissed off about something or I need to know all of your steps. It's just more of just like, oh, okay, tell me everything about it. I want to know every aspect of this. That's why I learned how to grade coins. That's how I learned about the antiques that my dad would collect. That's how I know so much stuff, because I would question it. When I wanted help with my computer, and they would fix it, and I was just like, well, tell me how so I don't have to ask you again. I want to know how to do it. Okay? I want to know how to do things myself. Anyway, and I'm sorry if I go off, but I figured this is a podcast. I'm going to continue on with what I'm talking about, but if there's like a side story that's going to come up, why not? I'm going to share. If it kind of like rings a bell for you, this is a nostalgic thing for me. Hopefully that will kind of spark something for you as well. And if not, you can laugh at me. Whatever. I'm used to it. So that caddy in the garage unfortunately got taken and not stolen. My dad gave it or sold it. I don't even know what he did, but his brother got it for whatever reason. I'll put this down the next thing, but we actually had it was like a blush color, peachy, like a blush color Buick. And I think that was a Park Avenue as well. Oh, I hated the color of that thing, but it had really awesome, it was like a brushed, not like suede. It was like a brushed, almost velvety. I really loved the interior because I love like anything soft feeling. My mom had to, when I was a baby, in order for me to get through like the lingerie department, she had to go down the middle of the aisle so that I wouldn't grab any of like the silky gowns and things, because I just loved the feel of it. And I still do that now. Like that, just anything that's super soft, like chenille or something like that. Like I love it. So I liked the interior of that. So if you remember, the late 80s, early 90s, some vehicles had the faux material roof. So you had your normal metal car, but the actual roof had some material and had like a metal border around it. That's what this car had. So we were going to take my brother for speech therapy, and on the way home, we heard this like pop, and my dad slowed down and went to the side of the road and looked, and the faux roof was coming off. So we all, in tandem, except for my brother because he was too I think maybe he might have done it, all had to have our arms outside the window to hold this thing down until we got home. And and then he got it taken off, and it just had like a smooth roof. It looks so much better without the actual faux. I hated those things. I understand like it's vintage type of thing, but I think it looked better after he had it. They took it off and they smoothed it out, and it was a nice car. Buicks were a smooth ride. It's almost like, having a Cadillac, a cheaper Cadillac. Buicks are expensive too, but these were not brand new vehicles, mind you, okay? They were not like right off the showroom floor. These were used. So, and we never really saw them super long. But while that car was being fixed, we got a loaner. Now, because majority of the time, I think my dad got them fixed I think he got it fixed at my uncle's dealership. I don't really know. So while I don't know how he got the loaner, it was probably from my uncle. And so this was a station wagon, and it was the old time station wagon with like the faux wood grain and the window in the very back that would go down, and it had the seat that was facing the other way. My brother and I loved it so my brother and I absolutely loved that. Even though it was a loaner and I don't know how it drove. I never drove it. I don't know if my mom liked it. It was an older car. You could tell it was not like, great. I liked it. My brother loved it because we could sit all the way in the back. We could have that window down. I don't know how safe it was, but it just because it was different and you got to face the other way. So we didn't have it for very long. And then we got the car back. And like I said, it looked so much better without that faux roof. So in between with all the suburban, then we got rid of that. Then we got rid of the Black Park Avenue, and then my dad got the peach colored one. All at the same time, we had this other car. It was a 1986 Dodge Ram. And the reason why I know the date and the year is because we had it for a very long time, and I actually learned how to drive in that. It was a gray, full length bed, only 2 doors, so it wasn't like a 4-door truck nowadays where it could be a family vehicle. But even though a family of 4, we shoved ourselves in there because my dad would take us to the horse auction or the small animal auction every Saturday. Where we lived, we didn't have trash pickup. We had the dump. So you had to go and take your trash and bring it over the weekend to the dump, which I don't miss doing that at all. I will say this. We did eventually get trash pickup towards the end from Waste Management. Granted, you had to pay for it, but it was so much better than having to go to the dump. And you had to like wait in line to go up this little hill for these men that were working there to take it out of your thing and throw it in the big the compactor. So we would use the truck for that. We would be the ones there at the weekend because my dad would go to the flea market on Saturday. So it would just be my mom, me, and my brother. And I love that truck, but it had issues. We would get up to the top of that damn hill. They would take the trash out, and the truck would conk out. And I don't know what was wrong with it. Like I said, I really do wish I know a little bit more now because I've had so much stuff that would go wrong with my cars. I'm just learning as I go because there's just different parts of the engine that just keep dying on me. So I'm going to learn about it and know how much it would be or where it's located because something happened. But anyway, I don't necessarily know what was wrong with that. All I know is that my dad, for a long time, in order for it to start, you had to really, you had to pump the gas, start it, and then it would race, if you guys know what that means. And so the engine would rev, be like at a high RPM when it first started. So you had to pump the gas a little bit for it to go to a resting position. So not be revving so much. I did love that because I liked the fact that there was a lot of vehicle, and even though it was only a 2-door truck, it was big and it was heavy. I just liked how it drove. I miss it. It was my fault. We got rid of it. Our neighbor, whom I never liked, offered to buy it, and we were in a bit of a financial pinch anyway. We always have been in a financial pinch. I feel like it's a never-ending nightmare. So I just said, okay, fine, you can buy it. So when he came and got it, he gave me the check for it and took it. And I was getting upset because my dad was already had passed. And when I got rid of it, it was like a piece of my dad going away. And this douchebag, he got one of his workers to come and get it. He's like, oh, wave bye. Yeah, so sad. He's dead now. Just so you know. I'm sorry. I'm not a horrible person. He really was a douchebag. And it wasn't just a douchebag to me. It was I've heard plenty of stories about him. But I was in a very, very delicate situation at the time with, with my dad having passed, and, we were having difficulties and things of that sort. And he just, no emotion in that man. Piece of shit. Anyhow, so rainbows and butterflies. Speaking of that truck, my dad actually did get it fixed for whatever it was that he had. It like I don't know how much money, but I think it was a good amount of money to have that thing put back together. And it worked afterwards. It was a fairly reliable vehicle, just a lot of gas because it was a big tank, an old car, but I loved that thing. But one of the times, because it was for farm use, my dad was putting something. I don't know if they were putting something into the truck or taking something out of the truck, but all I know is that my mom was trying to guide him to the truck, and my dad just like either wasn't paying attention to her or whatever, but he pretty much ran into the truck, and there was like a big dent on the one side. I don't know if he ever fixed. I don't know if he fixed that. He might have. I don't recall it having a dent in it all the time, but maybe there was because it has been a long time since I've seen that truck. One day I will find one that looks just like it, and I will have it. Another car that we had, and this was during, I'd have to say probably during my like eighth grade to the high school times, was a Buick Roadmaster. It was white. It was the smoothest ride. That's all I know. That's not all I know, but I know every time we would go somewhere, it was just like you were on a cloud. And man, I don't think I've been in a vehicle that's smooth since. And it was a white car. I don't necessarily like white cars, because mainly because I had one for a very long time. What was cool was the back, the rear wheels had it was like a half moon cover for the wheels. So kind of like harkening back to vintage vehicles with, a little bit of like half of the wheel showing in the back. So that was like a neat detail, kind of, trying to have a little bit more streamlined look and to be pretty. And I don't know what happened to that car or why we didn't have it thereafter. Because my dad really didn't, he stopped driving after a while, and my mom was the one that just took us everywhere. My dad in the beginning was, my dad was the main driver. If he was home, he was the one that was driving. If he wasn't home, mom was driving, or unless she was going out specifically for something, we would go to the mall or to the grocery store or something. But yeah, if my dad was going, he was mainly the driver. Until later on, and he didn't. I don't know if he just didn't want to drive anymore, or I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why we got rid of that vehicle, because we still had that. We still had the Dodge Ram. We had up until a few, like I would have to say, I believe we got rid of it before my son was born. So my memory is really crap nowadays, and here I am saying my mom has a bad memory. I should get myself checked out. So I'm not entirely sure why we got rid of it. I think my dad was just like, okay, I'm done. And then we go to, I think this is when he got rid of the Roadmaster. We go to my Uncle Jimmy's lot in Hamilton, and we're looking at vehicles. And there was a Chevy Tahoe and a Chevy Suburban. Is it a Chevy Tahoe? I don't even know. All right. So anyway, my mom really liked the Suburban because she really, really liked the powder blue Suburban. Oh, I forgot one. Speaking of Suburbans, we had a third Suburban before this one that I'm going to say. But it wasn't ours. It was like a loaner. My dad was trying to buy it, but it was the parts and service Suburban that was for my Uncle Jimmy's dealership. And it was like a very dark navy blue one, and it was super nice. It was like a newer one. It was well kept, and we had it for a while. And my dad, thinking that it was going to be ours, he took out the all the tools that were in the back. And I don't know if he did it on purpose, but we actually had he took out the third row seat as well of the actual Suburban. And when my Uncle Jimmy, I guess, asked for it back, we never gave them back the tools or the seat. So we had a random Suburban third row seating that my brother eventually used as like a seating area for his bedroom. And then all the tools. I don't know if that was a like take that from my dad to his brother. I'm not entirely sure because I think he was really angry that we didn't get to keep it, but I'm not entirely sure of the complete story behind that. So when we were looking at these cars, my dad was trading in the Roadmaster. So we were looking at the Tahoe and then the Suburban. The Tahoe had a CD player. That's all I know. It was a lighter color. I think it was silver and newer. And I really liked it for the CD player because that was not a. It was like a newer commodity in the cars. And I'm like to my mom because my dad was asking my mom what she wanted, and I was like, Mom, this has a CD player. This is a newer car. But she gravitated towards the Suburban. And it was a 1995 Chevy Suburban, and it was a red one. And it became known as Big Red. And we did have that for a very long time. It was actually the vehicle that brought my son home from the hospital, and we did have it for a while, up until I think my son was about 3 or 4. So this was when I was in high school when we had it. So it served us for 13 years or more. Just an offshoot. I was there looking at the other cars because I was going to be driving soon. I think I had my permit no, I didn't have my permit yet, but I was going to be having my permit soon. And I actually waited to get my permit and license because most people got their license as soon as they turned, or their permit as soon as they turned 16, and then their license as soon as they turned 17. I was very nervous to drive, so I waited. That summer, after I turned 17, I got my permit and then waited the 3 months and then got my license. I didn't actually have my permit for very long because I was just nervous. And my dad, from a parent's point of view, he was like, "Are you your niece?" So his granddaughter, who was only a few months younger than me, and lived in Pennsylvania, so they could get their license a year earlier, I believe. He's like, "She has it. Why don't you have it?" And I think he was just kind of trying to shame me into being like, "Look, she has it," and like, and I'm like, and I honestly looked at him like, I honestly don't care. I'm gonna do it in my own damn time. When I finally did, so I'm looking at the cars when my mom's looking at the, when they're getting all the paperwork done for the Suburban, and they had a one of those, the RAV4. It looked like a RAV4, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was something else. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like one of those cars that could easily turn over if you took a turn too sharp. So it was a dangerous vehicle. Glad I never got it. But I'm like, I really like this. I really like this. And I'm like trying to be like, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I really liked, and it was like a used car. Wasn't brand new. And I'm like, I'm going to be driving soon. I'm going to get I really like this. I didn't get it, obviously. Probably for the best. Funny story with the Suburban. Besides the fact I never got that car that I wanted. After my dad passed away, we actually had quite a few things that went wrong with that stupid thing. And of course, because, we didn't have a lot of the funds coming in. My mom, we didn't know what to do with a lot of the stuff. But one of the biggest things is my mom's driving home from work and she hears like a bang. And then she's like, doesn't really have much control over the vehicle. Pulls to the side of the road somehow and turns it off, and the drive shaft fell off. That's fun, right? So we had the roof come off of the other one and the drive shaft come off on the other one. But let me tell you the best story. So when I was in high school, obviously I didn't actually get that vehicle that I kept hinting to for my dad. It's like I really like this. I came home from school one day and there was like a vehicle that I never saw sitting in the driveway. And this is after we got the Suburban and we had the truck as well. So we had this blue car sitting like to the side. And I'm like to my mom, like, what's that car doing there? What's that car for? And mom's like, oh, it's a loaner. I'm like, loaner for what? We have the two cars that we have. And she just kind of like brushed it aside. And I had this feeling that it was for me. And in retrospect, and in, you know, even at the time, I should be grateful, obviously, because, you know, not everybody's given things like that. And I totally understand that. I don't know how many days goes by, but I got my permit. I passed the test, like, you know, and I was easy. I got my permit, and my mom and dad are in the kitchen dining area, and they hand me the keys and like, that's your car. And I got upset. I'm like, I didn't get to go and pick it out. You didn't take me. You didn't, like, it was like all of the people at school. First, let me just say that a good majority of the people at school came from money. There were farmers that were in and around the area, so they had, you know, or whatever. I don't know how they got the cars that they got, but my goodness, they had. I didn't expect a sports car, and perhaps I would have picked out that blue car. I wouldn't have, but I'm just saying, maybe I would have. I just wanted the opportunity to go with my dad, to go to pick it out with him. And I think I was more upset about that aspect of it than the car itself. But of course, you know, here I am, 17 years old. He goes, you know, I had to pay for my own car. None of my other kids were given, you know, because I was the other kids. And I felt horrible because yes, he's right, you know, like I didn't, and that's what I was trying to explain to him, but my dad wasn't like one of those people, like when he's pissed off at you, there's no explaining. It doesn't matter why you were angry. Just stop being angry and just appreciate what I did for you. And I get it, but all I was trying to say was that I just wanted to have the experience of going to pick out my first car with you. Yes, okay, I didn't like the car. It was this, so it was a 1988 Buick Skylark Custom. It was a two-door, roll-up windows, and it had I think it was called it's called the sunroof. It's not the electronic one, it's just the one that pops up. But I think that's a sunroof, and the moonroof is the one that opens. I just learned that a little while. I thought a sunroof was the ones that open up all the way. So anyway, this is the one that pops up. However, I didn't know this at the time, but that pop up sunroof, moonroof, whatever, was an installation after factory. Like it was an after factory installation. Usually there's issues sometimes with it leaking. And it leaked. Anytime it rained in my car. The material that was on the ceiling eventually drooped down to the point where I had to make sure I either cut it or glued it to the top because I couldn't see out my back window. The air conditioning eventually died on it. It needed new tires when my dad got it. It also needed an installation of the front license plate because it came from Pennsylvania and it didn't have the front plate holder. But none of the major problems happened until after my dad passed away. Not that I'm saying that if he was alive, would he have fixed it? Probably, but I don't want to be like, oh, well, if he was still around, that would be the only thing that I used him for. Absolutely not. But it just goes, it was a crap vehicle. It got me from A to B for just a few years, and I was able to at least drive my senior year so I didn't have to take the damn bus. I freaking hated taking the damn bus. And that was not because of the bus ride itself, it was because of the kids. And I just wanted to be anywhere other than there. So I was just like, yes, thank God I can drive. I took my brother because he hated the bus ride. I even drove him after that. Like after I was done and I graduated school, I still took him to whatever school he was going to because he was a troublemaker anyway. But I just knew how it was. So I didn't want him to have to deal with all that baloney, even though sometimes he was the cause of some of the baloney. But the Buick Skylark 1988 Custom with manual windows also had a awesome little detail of an installation of the window wiper delay because it didn't actually have that originally. So I did have an upgrade. It only had a cassette player. So I had to get one of those, the cassettes that were able to actually transmit from the CD player. I also even had the FM transmitter so I could go from my MP3 player when I upgraded. You know, new generational stuff. I also noticed my passenger floor was always wet, and I did spill some soda on the floor, but I cleaned it up, and it wasn't raining, so there was no reason for it to be wet. So I'm like, okay, I don't really know what's happening. Take it to get it checked out, and the heater core was leaking, so it needed to be replaced. And I waited for that stupid thing to be installed, and I didn't realize it was an all-day affair because I didn't know where it was in the vehicle. Apparently, it was deep in there that had to be taken apart, so that got replaced. I'm driving my mom to an interview for a job for her, and we're like, yeah, because I wanted to drive. And then all of a sudden, as I'm driving, the speedometer indicator goes all the way down and the lights go off and the car just like and I'm like I don't know what just happened. We end up having to walk to a restaurant to go and call to get it towed. We also had a really nice meal. It was the alternator, so the alternator got replaced. And then, like I said, the air conditioner went on that as well. And then I also had to get brakes for it. And then one day I made the mistake of filling the tank. And I decided, I'm like, I'm going to go take my brother and my son's dad to the mall. And we go out, we're driving, and everything seems to be okay. We stop at the bank so I can get some money out. And they turn and like, is that smoke normal? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And it's coming out of the hood. Like, it's fine. Because it like disappeared after a while. And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. It's fine. It wasn't fine. So we're almost to the mall. We're like at the halfway point. And of course, the way I go to the mall, because we lived out in the middle of nowhere, was out in the middle of nowhere. So we were like in a wooded area. Thankfully, there was like a business nearby. And my car dies. And when I mean it dies, it blew a cylinder. So it went from a 4-cylinder to a 3-cylinder, and the radiator blew up. Yeah. It got towed to our house because there was no way in hell that I was, the cylinder was, I can't replace the motor. And, a radiator maybe, but that was going to be expensive anyway. That's the story of my Buick Skylark. And then and this is after the 80s and 90s, so not necessarily nostalgic anymore, but I got my my Mustang. But I was without a car for a little while. Now, you think Mustang, I'm like, oh my God, upgrade. Okay, it was, and it was great that I had it, but then I had my son, and it was definitely not a family vehicle. But I do miss that car a lot, and it served me for nearly a decade, so I can't really say anything. Whereas the Buick, it didn't even serve me for it was less than 3 years. The thing was just crap. But I still feel bad that I didn't want my dad to think I was ungrateful. I was definitely grateful for having something, because I could have had nothing at all. I would have been happy to just drive the truck, honestly. I, if he just was like, you know what, can you just drive the truck for now and then maybe we'll go and like look at a car later? Yes. I love that thing. I will definitely drive this, but he probably didn't want me to. I don't know. Or maybe he thought I didn't want to. But I would have been perfectly happy to drive it. I'd be perfectly happy to drive it right now. It's technically a classic car. Yeah. That's the story of my car. So yeah, we went my mom, if you want to go through the whole list of things, I'm not going to go into the greatest details, but yeah, I had my 2000 Ford Mustang GT. It was beautiful. It was white. I didn't like the fact that it was white, but it lasted me nearly a decade. After that, I got my Camry. It was the first new car that I ever had. I had a Camry. It was a 2012 Camry hybrid. It was my first hybrid car and my first brand new car. And unfortunately, I named him Sam. I know most cars are supposed to be girls, but all my cars are guys, just so you know. My mom's car, the Suburban, was called Big Red. I don't know if I mentioned that. And then she got a new Dodge Ram. I think it was a 2009 Dodge Ram, and it was blue, and she named it Ramsey. So, and then after that, I financed a Chrysler Town and Country. It was the first van that I ever had. I didn't like the fact that it was I didn't really like the fact it was a van, but my goodness, it had that stow and go feature, and I could just take down all the stuff and be able to just load that thing up. And it was great. And it was awesome for Bryce and his car seat. Oh my god, it was like a revelation to have. He could stand up in that thing, and I can actually like sit up and be able to put his car seat in properly. And like, not that I didn't put it in improperly in the Mustang, but it was a freaking a chore because there was no room in that back seat. There was no back seat. The fact that there was a back seat at all is ridiculous. But we made it work. And then after the Town and Country pooped out, we actually traded in both the Town and Country and my Mustang for the Camry. So we had like two things plus a down payment. Like I worked my butt off to get my finances up to the point where I could get a car, and now I'm just down to nothing again. After the accident and the car was totaled, I have my Ford Fusion that likes to be started with a jump starter every morning because I don't know what's wrong with it. I have absolutely no luck with cars. My Camry, Sam, his name was, R.I.P., was the only car that really never gave me a problem. Like, I had to change I don't know what was going on with the headlights. I had to change the headlights quite a bit. I don't know if it was like a line that was like blowing them or something, but other than that, there was nothing wrong with that car, and it upsets me so much that the way he died, because I would have still had that car, but now I have Maximilian, and for the most part, he serves me well. He needs to be shocked to wake up. Sometimes I need to be shocked to wake up in the morning. I get it. Yeah, so that's the cars that got us there. Us as in my family and me. I don't know what kind of cars you had. Obviously, you probably, I don't know if you guys went through Suburbans like we went through, or had funny stories of how the cars just like to, blow up. Oh, I forgot. My Buick Skylark, that was the other thing. So besides the leaking roof, the actual material falling down, the air conditioning not working, the heater core and the alternator going before it blew up. I was driving down White Horse Pike, and my muffler fell off. I actually parked it to the side, and I ran out in the middle of the street to go and get it, and I put it in my trunk. And before I got it fixed, it sounded like it was a race car because it was like, because it didn't have the muffler on anymore. So, fun stuff. So when it died, it had a brand new muffler, a full tank of gas, and newish tires. It was great. I put more money into that than I think my dad paid for it. It's so annoying. So annoying. Love cars. I do love cars. I love the concept of them. And like I said, vintage cars. Eventually, I will get money to be able to actually have a vintage car. Or I will have a project and I will figure it out. But I have so much stuff on my plate right now, and I highly doubt I'll ever retire in my life. I'll die before I'm retired. I have to figure out how to wedge that into my life somehow. But I definitely want to do it. I want to learn, and I want to get a vintage car. I would love to get one of the old Ford trucks, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll have a bestseller out there and I'll be able to live my dream. But we'll see. There's always a chance. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I was fairly on topic and like with a little bit of the side things. I hope that made you laugh a little bit. I hope you're enjoying these episodes thus far. So be on the lookout for the next episode next week. I'm trying to get back on schedule. I'm in a better mood, obviously, and just getting back on track with everything. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate this. That you listen and that you keep listening, and all the return listeners. You can subscribe, follow, whatever on Spotify, the Google Podcasts. You can also do it through my website. And and check out my blog, GabrielleCataldi.com. So I do it twice a week. Sometimes a little bit more if I'm really feeling it, but mostly it's just twice a week because I only have so much time to write that, plus my schoolwork, doing this, breathing, sleeping, life. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. And this is Gabrielle signing off for That 80s Child, the Generation Why. Bye.